Chicago, 1939.
We're here.
A black man.
Give me a lift, Bigger. I'm wobbly.
A white woman.
Bigger? Help me, Bigger. I'm stuck.
If you have any understanding of America in 1939,
My hat! I dropped my hat.
you are mortally afraid for these people.
Well, I suppose I better go to bed.
Can you make it?
Sure, turn me loose. I sure am drunk.
Let me help you.
This is a cruel story. A brutal truth as old as America. One that just won't go away. On the eve of World War II, segregation of the races was still the social order, de facto in the North, by law in the South. It was a time of genuine oppression for 12 million African Americans. One man, a writer, saw the filling reservoirs of hatred and warned of things to come. Richard Wright was his name. Native Son was his warning.
Native Son is a powerful book. It made a tremendous impact when it was first published. It became a bestseller. It hit some nerve. The book can still be read with intensity. It is still very accurate. If no other subject but the rage, that pent-up rage, and the inevitability of that rage exploding, and the question of who does it hit, who does it hurt, where does it go?
Published in 1940, Native Son tells the story of Bigger Thomas, a young black man whose family has moved from the South to Chicago's South Side ghetto. Impoverished, frustrated, and the object of the relentless contempt of white America, Bigger scorns the slavish role dictated for him. He is unstable, easily violent, and fearful. And it is this fear that drives him toward his fate.
Perhaps the chief source of its power is its fearlessness. Wright presents a grim and uncompromising and unflinching portrait of racism at work in America, and above all, how it feels to be black and to be victimized.
A frustrated boredom is the very atmosphere in this part of town, and anger flashes from it easily.
Hey, Doc.
Hey, you boys in here a little early, ain't you?
Jack and GH around?
Nah, I ain't seen him. Hey, let's shoot a game, Biggie.
I'm broke.
Yeah, I got some money. Okay. Say, Biggie, you taking that job you was telling us about?
I don't know.
Well, you talking as if you don't want it.
Hell yes, I want it. Hey, remember what we talked about?
No, what?
Old blooms.
Hey, we ain't talked about that in a month. Why you think of that all of a sudden?
Let's clean the place out.
Hey, I don't know, Biggie.
It was your plan in the first place. Oh, you scared. 'Cause he's white, you're scared.
Hey, the hell I'm scared.
Listen, you don't even have to go in. You just stand outside at the door and keep watch. See, me, Doc, and Jack and GH, we'll go in. If anybody comes, you whistle, and we'll go out the back. That's all.
Here comes Jack now. Hey, what you boys doing?
He has a great ear, and the dialogue of the young men in the pool room works very well. You're in every pool room in every black community. And his insight into the rituals and the forms of African American folklore is exceedingly acute.
I got a hall all figured out. What hall? Old Blooms. Old Bloom. Oh, you scared. If he was a black man, y'all would be itching to go. Because he's white, y'all all scared. I ain't scared. I'm with you. God damn it, say something.
You don't cuss me, Bigger.
I am cussing you.
Oh, Bigger, let him alone.
Oh, he's yelling. And he won't go with us.
I ain't say I wouldn't go.
Then for Christ's sake, say what you gonna do.
It has a kind of jazz-like sense of an improvisatory quality because you never know exactly what's going to come next, but at the same time it's moving forward. Boom.
Alienated and resentful, Bigger Thomas and others like him spring from the stark landscape of America's inner cities.
Look. What? That plane right in the sky. Looks just like a bird.
Yeah, those white boys sure can fly.
Yeah, they get a chance to do everything. I could fly a plane if I had a chance.
If you take Bigger and try to look at him as any one person, I think we do Wright a disservice. He is a composite. He is a man for all seasons, a man for all colors. He is many men. Wright intended him to be that way.
Bigger's character was based on men Richard Wright had encountered in his own experiences. Wright was born in Natchez, Mississippi in 1908. His mother and father were sharecroppers. The life of a sharecropper had all the trappings of slavery. It was bitterly hard, straitjacketed by discriminatory laws known collectively as Jim Crow.
That was a veritable hell. It was a way of life determined entirely by Jim Crow. Jim Crow schools, houses, cemeteries, water fountains, everything laid out in a Jim Crow fashion. Nothing for the black man, everything for the white man.
Southern racism was relentless and unbearable. It was all but inescapable in the first few decades of the 20th century. But after World War I, the prospect of jobs in northern factories offered a way out and launched a great northward migration of African Americans. The Wrights were part of that. The family moved first to Memphis, where Richard's father deserted them. Richard, his mother, and an aunt ultimately found their way to Chicago.
What Wright captures in Native Son is the migration paradigm. Thousands and thousands of black people moving from the South, rural South, to the urban North. Wright had experienced that same thing, and so Bigger Thomas is that model. Born in Mississippi, moving to Chicago. That mode of migration is what characterized the lives of people in that period. That is one of the things that made that book enormously popular.
Once in Chicago, black newcomers were herded into a section on the South Side that became known as the Black Belt.
When Wright arrived in Chicago, it was a striking contrast to Mississippi. Chicago was thought to be, from the deep Egyptian perspective of Mississippi, something of a Canaan, a promised land. But Chicago, of course, was not Canaan, and it was especially not Canaan on the South Side. The kitchenette apartment, a single room with maybe a corner kitchen and a bathroom in the hallway, was pretty much standard housing. It was the kind of housing that Wright himself and his mother and aunt had to endure.
Disillusionment came swiftly. While in some ways Chicago was a big improvement, black people still were limited to menial, subservient jobs. For some, like Bigger, it was nothing more than a different route to the same old hell. In 1938, Wright had published a book of short stories, including one about Big Boy, a gentler prototype of Bigger Thomas. Novelist James T. Farrell praised Wright's courageous realism, but Wright himself felt he hadn't been nearly strong enough.
I had written a book which even bankers' daughters could read and weep over and feel good about. I swore to myself that if I ever wrote another book, no one would weep over it, that it would be so hard and deep that they would have to face it without the consolation of tears.
Native Son would keep that promise.
Thomas? Bigger Thomas?
Yes, sir.
Come this way. Sit down.
Yes, sir.
Henry?
Are you all right?
Yes.
Where's Mary?
She's upstairs. I'm quite all right, Henry.
That's Mrs. Dalton. She's blind. Oh, yes, sir.
She has a very deep interest in colored people.
Yes, sir.
Do you like driving a car?
The Daltons are the epitome of well-meaning, wealthy whites of that time. Mr. Dalton just happens to own the tenement where the Thomas family lives.
Mr. Dalton is a slumlord. At the same time, he makes contributions to the NAACP to assuage his conscience.
Well, they tell me you can drive a car. And I'm going to give you the job. Think you can handle it?
Yes, sir.
I think we'll get along.
Yes, sir.
I don't think there'll be any trouble.
Oh, no, sir.
Bigger's job is to drive the Daltons' daughter, Mary, to and from school. It will be the first time he has ever been alone with a white woman.
Bigger, is that you? Thank you.
Is that your university school out at the Midway, ma'am?
Yes, that's the one.
Bigger Thomas is accommodating. He's the servant, he's the driver. He says what people want him to say. He is fearful. He doesn't quite know how to act. So to a certain extent, he's reluctant to respond. So that fear drives him.
Got a match?
Yes, sir.
Strike it. You're not a tattletale, are you? I'm not going to the university. I want you to drive me to the Loop. But if anyone should ask, then I went to the university. See, Bigger?
Yes, sir. It's all right with me, ma'am.
I think I can trust you.
Yes, sir.
After all, I'm on your side. I'm going to meet a friend of mine who's also a friend of yours.
Friend of mine?
Take it easy, Bigger. You'll understand it by and by. Isn't there a song like that? A song you people sing?
Oh, yes, sir.
So if you look at that section where Bigger Thomas is driving Mary Dalton, all of that is the personification of racism in America and the impact that it's had on our image of black people.
Oh, Bigger, this is Jan. Jan, this is Bigger Thomas.
How are you, Bigger?
I'm fine.
Come on and shake. We may as well get to know each other. I'm a friend of Mary's.
Yes, sir.
First of all, don't call me sir. I'll call you Bigger and you call me Jan. How's that?
It's all right, Bigger. Jan means it.
Let me drive a while.
It's all right, Bigger.
No, stay in and move over.
Move over, Bigger.
With Jan on his left and Mary on his right, his initial and overpowering response is one of fear. He feels that he is enclosed between, as the novel puts it, two white looming walls of hate. Not understanding, being suspicious of, made embarrassed by and nervous by their overtures of friendship.
What a glorious night.
God, yes. This is a beautiful world, Bigger. We'll own it someday, Bigger. After the revolution, it'll be ours. But we'll have to fight for it, Bigger. And when that day comes, things will be different. There'll be no white and no black. There'll be no rich and no poor.
We seem strange to you, don't we, Bigger?
Oh, no, ma'am.
The revolution Jan is predicting is a communist revolution. In the 1930s, American communists were at the peak of their power. Their party was legal, with representation in some local governments.
There was some sense being made of a chaotic and threatening situation that nobody else was even trying to deal with.
The Communist Party offered Wright literary opportunity. He was unrecognized in the early 30s, and the opportunity came in 1934 to join the John Reed Club of Chicago. This was his first close contact with white people, and he found them quite unlike the racists of the Deep South. He found them cordial, he found them encouraging, he found them supportive. In fact, so pleased were they to have a black member that he was promptly nominated and elected as president of the Chicago John Reed Club.
While a Reed Club member, Wright wrote poetry for communist publications. The communists were impressed with his efforts, but he, on the other hand, quickly realized the limitations of their party.
That they didn't understand anything about black people. They had a lot of talk, they had a lot of principles and beliefs, but they really didn't understand the black experience. Wright knew that.
You know, Bigger, we'd like to be a friend of yours. You'll get used to us.
Listen, Bigger, I have some pamphlets here. I want you to read them, see? I really want you to read them. We'll have a talk about them in a couple of days.
I'll see to it he reads them.
One thing I think Wright is showing is that ideological correctness of whatever political persuasion is not enough to address an issue that is not merely political or sociological, but is psychological as well.
Their party business completed, Jan and Mary moved to the back seat, oblivious now to Bigger's presence.
That threesome for Wright gave him the best way to articulate his vision. The sexual innuendos, the composite images of racism in America and the stereotypes drawn from racism come in that scene.
To protect Mary's alibi, Bigger finally drops Jan off. Mary insists on getting into the front seat.
Mary is still in that contradictory relationship as a white woman with a black man. And that becomes dominant by the time she's drunk and he has to bring her home. So no longer is the political piece of it at the center of it, but it is now we're back to that stereotype of the black man, the white woman, and the fear that he has because of the perception that this creates.
We're here.
Bigger, give me a lift. I'm wobbly. Help me, Bigger, I'm stuck.
Mary is white. She is the flower of white womanhood, as it were. Here is Bigger, the big black brute in the stereotypical form. So that there should not be a relationship between them.
Oh. My hat. Bigger, where's my hat? I suppose I better go to bed now.
Can you make it?
Sure. Turn me loose. I sure am drunk.
Let me help you.
The scene when Bigger brings Mary back home after partying with Jan is loaded in many ways. It becomes a love scene which becomes quite subversive. The white woman is helpless. She's in the black man's hands. So you have everything from versions of Uncle Tom's Cabin to King Kong, all collapsed into that single scene. So it's very erotic. He's turned on, but yet at the same time he's opening the door to chaos, and he knows it.
We're here.
Is that you? Mary, is that you? Mary, are you ill? Mary, are you asleep? I heard you moving about and you're dead drunk. You stink like whiskey.
It's a very frustrating moment. And I think it's the moment that America wasn't ready for, because it is a love scene. And I don't think Wright could bring it to any other conclusion.
To dispose of the body, Bigger has had to cut off Mary's head to get her into the furnace.
That's a real psychotic thing. My reaction to that was worse than picking her up and taking her in the house. Pushing her in that furnace, that's bad.
After burning Mary's body, Bigger writes a ransom note and signs it red to implicate Jan and the communists.
They've got Mary.
In the note, Bigger details a location to deliver the money that would be picked up by his girlfriend Bessie. But before the Daltons deliver the ransom, a reporter snooping around the basement makes a grisly discovery. Bigger knows he will be charged with Mary's death, so he flees to find Bessie and make a run for it.
It is Bigger's racial fear that precipitates his flight. He is fleeing from justice, quote unquote, a fugitive from justice, but he is at the same time fleeing toward his fate.
Running for their lives, Bigger and Bessie are still trapped within the Black Ghetto. They take shelter in an empty warehouse. Bessie, almost paralyzed with fear, has begun to slow Bigger down.
Bessie unrolled him and spread him out.
Because Bessie is Bigger's girlfriend, she becomes defined as an object. The relationships between men and women at that point in time, and I think in Richard Wright's mind, would not have allowed Bessie to have a more prominent role.
I thought it'd never be like this.
It won't always be like this.
I just as soon die right now.
Say that.
When I'm cold, cold all over, feel I never get warm. Bigger, please. Bigger, stop. Bigger, bigger, stop. Bigger, no. Bigger.
It is important to understand that Wright's vision was a black male vision. It is one that helps to clarify many things, even if it is one that it excludes other kinds of issues that we'd like to consider. But it is a black male vision. It is the only one that Wright could possibly have.
Bessie knows everything about him, and Bessie knows what to tell the police, and he couldn't allow Bessie to live. He felt that he had to destroy Bessie to get rid of the businesses behind him.
The killing of Bessie is really very different from the killing of Mary Dalton, which is by accident. Killing of Bessie, girlfriend, is a deliberate act. It's an act, I think, that in a sense, reconstructs Richard Wright's relationship to women in general, but I think in political terms, it's a most destructive act.
Bigger's quite clear about why he kills Bessie. He kills her because it's her or me. So clearly Wright is telling us that this woman, this Bessie, is Bigger, a part of Bigger that he hates, a part of Bigger that stands in the way of the next step in his personal evolution.
Many people have made it a racial thing, that he didn't mean to kill that white girl. He knew what that would do to him. But he didn't mind killing the black girl. There wasn't going to be anything done about that at all.
Give yourself up, boy!
Bigger manages to elude the police by hiding out in abandoned buildings, but is eventually cornered on a rooftop.
When Bigger is finally captured, he's powerless. He's been trapped. It's gothic because it happens at night, and it's almost like a Hollywood premiere because there's searchlights on him. Again, echoes of King Kong at the top of the Empire State Building.
Hey, you, stop!
Bigger becomes not an individual, not a single person, but the quarry of the culture. And it's clear that the forces closing in on him are forces that have just this immense power. And he never had a chance.
Hey, here's behind your back! Hands behind your back!
Fate is tied up with both the murders. Bigger says to himself and says to the reader, hey, I've been killing white people all my life. When I'm in a room with a white woman alone, I'm supposed to kill her. They would say I killed her whether I did or not. And so I have been conditioned to be the predator. I've been conditioned to be a murderer. So what the heck? So I did it this time. What's the big deal?
Sit down, Bigger. Say, how do you feel?
Despite Bigger's attempt to frame him, Mary's friend Jan has arranged for a communist lawyer named Boris Max.
I bought you some clothes. When they give them to you in the morning, put them on. You want to look your best when you go up for arraignment. What's on your mind, Bigger?
Nothing.
There's the weight, the symbolic weight of this meeting between Max and Bigger at the end of the novel. And that the weight is the philosophical ideas and the issues that these two men have to talk about. But if you hear two puppets, or if you watch two puppets sort of just being mouthpieces for Wright's ideas, then the scene doesn't work at all. You have to feel Bigger. You have to be inside of him.
I want to be honest with you, Bigger. The only way out of this is to plead guilty. We can ask for mercy, life in prison.
I'd rather die.
Nonsense. You want to live.
For what?
Don't you want to fight this thing?
What can I do? They got me.
You don't want to die that way, Bigger.
Don't matter which way I die.
Listen, Bigger, you're facing a sea of hate now, but you've got to fight it. If they wipe you out, they'll wipe out others too.
Yeah, but I can't win.
Bigger, do you trust me?
You can't help me, Mr. Max.
But do you trust me?
I don't know, Mr. Max.
Max represents a political, intellectual, sociological explanation of racism. But Wright is suggesting that there is another dimension, and that is the psychological dimension, the emotive dimension, the feeling.
It's like a dance. Max gets his word in, then Bigger says something in return. And they seem to be dancing, and Max seems to be leading the dance. And then suddenly, it's almost as if, bam, Bigger steps on his toe. And the dance changes, because Bigger understands more about what Max is saying than Max understands.
Wright poured himself into Native Son, a naturalistic novel for the most part, but naturalism bent to accommodate his message.
I was guided but by one criterion, to tell the truth as I saw it and felt it. What I wanted to say to the reader was more important than surface reality or plausibility.
Wright sent the manuscript to his publisher in June of 1939. He expected the worst, and with some reason. Surely Native Son was too much for white America to digest. He was wrong. The book was an immediate success. In 2 weeks' time, it had sold over 200,000 copies. Richard Wright's star had risen.
No book by an African-American writer had such an instant success. The novel's power did strike a responsive chord. Some people were scandalized, some people were appalled, but they bought the book and read it because no other writer, black or white, had ever dealt with the race issue in this way.
On March 24th, 1941, Native Son opened as a play on Broadway, directed by Orson Welles. Hollywood also expressed interest in the story.
MGM approached Wright with an offer of $50,000 for the screen rights to Native Son, with the proviso, however, that in order to make the film tolerable to a mass movie audience, certain changes would have to be made. Most importantly, Bigger had to be white.
The integrity of his work was worth a good deal more to Wright than MGM's offer. He said no. Richard Wright was consistently his own man, and in the final scene of Native Son, he passed that on to Bigger.
Hello, Bigger. How you feeling? Did you get my wire? I'm sorry, son.
You ain't to blame for what's happening to me, Mr. Max. I know you did all you could.
I just reckon I had this coming to me.
Is there anything I can do for you, Bigger?
Bigger by this time is his own person. He doesn't need the communist defense. Wright has already written a book that has been faithful to his view of a society that is driven by racism, that creates people like Bigger Thomas.
Mr. Max, how can I die? But I won't be crying when they're taking me to that chair. But I'll be feeling inside of me like I was crying. I'll be feeling and thinking that they didn't see me, and I didn't see them. Mr. Max, you going home. I ain't trying to forgive nobody. They wouldn't let me live and I killed. Maybe it ain't fair to kill, and I reckon I really didn't want to kill. But when I think of why all the killing was, I begin to feel what I wanted, what I am. What I killed for must have been good.
Goodbye, Bigger.
Bigger realizes that in killing, he has ceased to be merely a victim. In a perverse way, he has taken control of his life.
He has become his crime and has taken the weight of it, and he's going to die, and that's the hard, cruel truth, and he can look at it, and Max can't.
Bigger says, I kill, and that is what I am. And his Communist Party attorney doesn't understand that, doesn't understand that Bigger's achieved a consciousness which goes again beyond Marxist theory.
For the same reasons, Richard Wright and the Communists eventually parted company. The party no more understood Native Son than Max understood Bigger. While the book was being widely praised by others, the communist response was notably cool. The FBI had gotten interested in Richard Wright, and not just because he was a communist. Wright wrote the text for a picture book about the black experience in America. It was published in October 1941 and contained the following sentence.
There are those of us who feel the need of the protection of a strong nation so keenly that we admire the harsh imperialistic policies of Japan and ardently hope that the Japanese will assume leadership of the darker races.
Wright becomes more dangerous to the state once he's beyond the confines of the Communist Party, particularly in the war years, because the war years are marked by the recognition that the loyalty of black Americans is an issue.
12 Million Black Voices was in all the bookstores on December 7th when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Richard Wright would be a watched man for the rest of his life. After the success of Native Son, Wright published his autobiographical work, Black Boy, also a bestseller. He moved to New York's Greenwich Village, only to face harassment by his neighbors and the FBI. So, with World War II coming to an end, Wright moved to Paris. After living there only 1 week, he commented that there was more freedom for a black man in 1 square block of Paris than in all of the United States.
He discovered a tremendous freedom, which he, of course, had not been able to enjoy in the States, even in the northern part of the States. He enjoyed the Paris atmosphere. He enjoyed a very friendly welcome by the French intellectuals and by the French people at large.
Wright was befriended by Gertrude Stein, another expatriate, and welcomed by the likes of Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. He joined their gatherings and began to explore the existentialist movement popular at the time. Existentialism might have been a new word for Wright, but it was not a new idea. The proposition that a man becomes what he does is the harsh realization Bigger came to. In Paris, Wright began work on a kind of sequel, The Outsider.
In a sense, Bigger Thomas has grown up. So that big boy from Uncle Tom's Children, who becomes bigger in Native Son, is now a fully grown man who's much more assertive and aggressive, and it takes charge of his own fate. Now, at the end of Native Son, we see that evolution, that consciousness in Bigger. Here in The Outsider, we begin with someone who is able to take charge and recreate his own existence.
But The Outsider was misunderstood and did not do very well.
The audience for that kind of curiously intellectual book did not exist. The passion and the power were there, but the particularity that Wright had brought to Native Son was perhaps different.
And so they didn't look real closely at what actually was there. And it's too bad, because Wright was one of the most adventurous intellectuals among our fiction writers at that time. And he was a breath of fresh air because of his continental connections, because of his awareness of this, what he helped name Third World. And he was bringing much into our fiction. But everybody wanted Son of Native Son.
Wright was 45 years old in 1953 when he turned his attention to the liberation movements in Africa and Asia. He wrote many nonfiction works, and though they were critically applauded, none had the effect of Native Son. His celebrity fading, Wright found that the freedom he had initially enjoyed in Paris was vanishing, and he was still an item of interest to any number of intelligence agencies, from the CIA to the French Sûreté.
Now, Wright was a bit cautious when he was speaking, when he was giving lectures or interviews in France, because if you were a foreigner and spoke against French policy in the French colonies, especially in Algeria, you were very likely to be expelled or run in trouble with the French government.
When he commented to a black friend of his, an artist named Ollie Harrington, that he wouldn't be surprised if his apartment weren't bugged, Harrington said, "Oh, don't be paranoid, Dick," but he got together with some friends, hired a French technician to survey the apartment. His apartment was bugged.
After this incident, Wright moved. He sold his home on the Rue Monsieur le Prince and moved completely out of the Latin Quarter to a small apartment on the Rue Régis.
On top of that, he was sick. He had caught amoebic dysentery either in Jakarta or in Ghana, and he'd been treated for some time, even for a couple of years without much result, and his tensions grew.
So he writes to several of his friends at the beginning of 1960, "If something happens to me, you will all know what it's about."
1960. Wright was in poor health, and he declined most offers to speak. But he did deliver one lecture in Paris, November the 8th, on the situation of black artists and intellectuals. He claimed they were being manipulated by spies and provocateurs of the American government. Wright's health continued to deteriorate, and having distanced himself from other expatriates, he had few friends.
Langston Hughes was visiting Paris, as he often did, and he went to see Wright when Wright was pretty sick.
He went to this little clinic, Eugene Gibet. The first night he was there for testing and treatment, he died.
Amoebic dysentery, while it is a serious medical ailment, should not cause somebody to die. At the same time, the stress of his life at that point was certainly enough to cause a heart attack, which is what the public was told he died from.
I think of all those paranoid things that radicals in the 60s were saying, the Panthers, the Weathermen, et cetera, et cetera. And it turns out that those paranoid fantasies, in fact, were grounded in the actual dirty tricks that people like the COINTELPRO and the FBI and the Secret Service. So who knows? Who knows?
I tend towards the Wright was killed end of the continuum, where people like Michel Fabre, as you know, I think one of Wright's most important biographers, still believes that there is no basis for accepting conspiracy theory of Wright's death.
My conclusion was that the pressures put upon him probably hastened his death. The pressures put upon him by the spies, by the problems he had to contend with as a committed writer. But I hesitate, contrary to the people who think that he was killed by the CIA, to conclude along that line, mostly because what he was doing, in my opinion, was not enough to warrant his being killed. I mean, if any proof or whatever was discovered, I would be ready to believe it.
Beginning with Native Son, Richard Wright's literary activity spanned 3 decades. His work influenced writers all over the world.
Wright gives us a legacy of liberation. It is the liberation of the writing process, the bringing together of politics and art, the fearlessness in doing it at a time when he could have easily been banished for life. So that sort of bravery was, as I said, it was liberating. And I think it was that sense of liberation that he, in fact, passed on to others.
Bigger Thomas, a character of the Chicago South Side, has been multiplied 1,000-fold and armed not simply with a pistol or a knife or a pool cue, but now with automatic weapons, with AK-47s, with Uzi, which is to say that the problems that Wright alerted us to so forcefully in 1940 in his great novel have yet to be resolved. The agenda is still before us.
Historian Irving Howe said of Richard Wright's most successful work, "The day Native Son appeared, American culture was changed forever. It made impossible a repetition of the old lies, and brought out into the open as no one ever had before, the hatred, the fear, and the violence that have crippled and may yet destroy our culture."